The whisper of forgotten frequencies. The city of New Meridian breathed in static. Zara Novak pressed her fingertips against the neural dampener behind her ear, trying to quiet the endless buzz that only she could hear. Most people saw her condition as a disability, a neurological aberration that made her hear electromagnetic waves like painful music. But Zara knew better. She was a listener in a world designed to speak without hearing. Her workshop was a sanctuary of controlled chaos. Soundproofed walls lined with copper mesh blocked external frequencies, creating a bubble of relative silence. Vintage communication equipment hung from industrial brackets, radio receivers, satellite transmitters, quantum communication nodes, each a testament to her obsession with understanding the language of invisible waves. Another anomaly, she muttered, adjusting the quantum spectrum analyzer. The device was her own creation, a hybrid of medical technology and communication engineering that allowed her to translate the electromagnetic whispers most humans never perceived. The current frequency was different. Most electromagnetic signals carried predictable patterns: corporate communications, government broadcasts, consumer data streams. This was something else. A rhythm that didn't quite match any known communication protocol. It pulsed like a heartbeat, irregular yet purposeful. Zara's fingers danced across the interface, isolating the signal. Her neural dampener hummed with increased intensity, a warning that she was approaching something significant. The frequency carried fragments, not words exactly, but impressions. Emotions. Fragments of hidden conversations that seemed to exist between the lines of official communication. A notification flashed on her primary display. Another routine maintenance job from the Central Communication Authority. As a licensed frequency specialist, Zara was often contracted to diagnose and repair communication infrastructure. Most technicians found the work mundane. For her, it was a chance to explore the hidden layers of the city's communication network. Her communication chip, a standard-issue device implanted at birth, vibrated with an incoming call. The holographic interface flickered to life, revealing the stern face of her supervisor at the CCA. Novak, Director Reese's voice was crisp, professional. "We've got an anomaly in Sector 7. Quantum network degradation. Need you on site within the hour." Zara's attention was split. The mysterious frequency continued its strange pulse in the background of her analysis software. Sector 7. That's the old financial district. Wasn't that area decommissioned after the last network collapse? Reese's hologram shifted, a nearly imperceptible movement that spoke volumes to someone who could read electromagnetic nuance like Zara. "Precisely why we need you. Your unique condition makes you our best diagnostic specialist." Unique condition. The phrase always felt like a polite way of saying, broken. Zara had learned to turn her neurological difference into a professional advantage. Where others heard static, she heard stories. She began preparing her diagnostic kit, a collection of specialized tools that looked more like artistic sculptures than technical equipment. Each piece was calibrated to her specific neural interface, allowing her to probe communication networks in ways no standard technician could. The mysterious frequency continued its irregular pulse. Something was waiting in Sector 7. Something that wanted to be heard. As she packed her gear, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a routine maintenance call. The electromagnetic wave seemed to carry a sense of anticipation, like a held breath waiting to be released. Little did she know that the frequency she was tracking was about to change everything she understood about communication, connection, and the invisible networks that truly governed their world. Her neural dampener hummed a warning. Something was coming. Resonance of the unseen. The quantum network hub stretched beneath New Meridian like an underground nervous system. Crystalline data conduits pulsed with soft blue light, creating intricate patterns that only a true network architect could appreciate. Riven Coster moved through the space with the precision of a surgeon, his augmented gloves interfacing directly with the complex communication infrastructure. Most people believed the quantum network was a seamless, controlled system. Riven knew better. Every network had its secrets, its hidden pathways, its moments of vulnerability. His current project was officially classified as routine maintenance. Unofficially, he was hunting something far more complex, a series of communication anomalies that didn't fit any standard pattern. Fragments of data that seemed to exist between the authorized channels, whispering something just beyond comprehension. System diagnostic at 62%, the neural interface murmured directly into his auditory cortex. Riven adjusted a molecular data coupler, his movements careful and deliberate. Each touch sent ripples of diagnostic information through the network, probing for inconsistencies. A notification flickered at the edge of his vision. An incoming transmission from an unexpected source, the frequency specialist from the Central Communication Authority. Zara Novak. Her profile was unusual, marked with multiple warning flags about her unique neurological condition. The transmission was encrypted, but not in any standard protocol. Riven's fingers danced across the quantum interface, breaking down the layers of communication. Most would see nonsense. He saw a pattern. Interesting, he muttered, more to himself than to the empty hub. The message was a fragment, a ghost of information about a network anomaly in Sector 7. But it wasn't the content that caught his attention. It was the way the information was structured, like a key waiting to unlock something much larger. Riven's past was a carefully maintained blank space. Official records showed a standard career trajectory: quantum network architect, top-tier specialist, model citizen. The truth was far more complicated. He knew about the hidden layers of communication, the systems beneath the systems. His augmented eye, a sophisticated piece of technology that was more than just a replacement for his original, scanned the network topology. Something was different. Subtle shifts in data flow, microscopic variations that most would dismiss as routine fluctuations. But Riven didn't believe in coincidences. A holographic display materialized, showing the intricate web of communication networks. Bright lines of authorized communication crisscrossed in predictable patterns. But at the edges, almost invisible, were thin tendrils of alternative pathways. Unauthorized. Unexpected. "Show me," he whispered to the network. The display shifted, zooming into the molecular structure of the data conduits. There, a series of quantum entanglements that shouldn't exist. Communication pathways that defied the standard network protocols. His communication chip vibrated with an incoming priority message. The sender was marked as restricted access, a classification that typically meant government-level communication. Director Reese's voice cut through the quantum interference. "We need you to investigate an anomaly in the network. Sector 7. Highest priority." Riven's augmented eye flickered, processing the request. The same sector Zara Novak had been assigned to investigate. Coincidence? Unlikely. As he prepared his advanced diagnostic equipment, Riven couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to uncover something that was never meant to be found. The quantum network hummed around him, a living entity with secrets waiting to be revealed. Something was moving beneath the surface of New Meridian's communication infrastructure. And he was going to find out what it was. Harmonies of rebellion. The resistance base was a symphony of controlled chaos. Holographic maps flickered across reinforced walls, tracking communication networks like veins of a complex organism. Lyra Voss moved between stations, her posture a careful balance between military precision and underground defiance. Once, she had been the Central Communication Authority's most promising communication specialist. Now, she was its greatest threat. Incoming transmission, called Marcos, their primary communication interceptor. His fingers danced across a hybrid interface, part salvaged government technology, part custom-built rebellion hardware. Lyra's neural interface hummed to life. Years of government communication training had taught her to read between the lines, to hear the stories hidden beneath official broadcasts. The resistance called it frequency reading, the ability to understand the true message beyond the words. The transmission was fragmented. Most would hear nothing but static. Lyra heard a warning. Sector 7 is moving, she muttered, tracing the electromagnetic signature. They're preparing something big. The resistance base was hidden beneath New Meridian's abandoned infrastructure, a labyrinth of decommissioned communication tunnels and forgotten network hubs. Each room was a testament to their struggle, communication equipment salvaged from across the city, modified to intercept and decode the government's most secure channels. Lyra understood the power of communication better than anyone. In a world where information was the most valuable currency, controlling the narrative meant controlling everything. Her personal history was a wound carefully concealed beneath professional composure. She had seen firsthand how the Central Communication Authority manipulated information, turning truth into a weapon. Her mentor, the person who had taught her everything about communication networks, had disappeared after discovering something the government wanted to keep hidden. "We've got a correlation," Marcos called out. His voice carried a mix of excitement and fear. The frequency specialist from the CCA and the quantum network architect are both investigating the same sector. Lyra studied the holographic display. Two independent operators, both approaching the same location from different angles. Coincidence was not in her vocabulary. "Prepare extraction protocols," she ordered. "If they're getting close to what I think they're finding, they'll need protection." The resistance had been waiting for this moment. Years of careful planning, of building a network beneath the network, of creating communication pathways that existed in the shadows of official channels. Her neural interface picked up another transmission. Fragments of a conversation, encrypted but not entirely hidden. Something about a fundamental communication disruption in Sector 7. Lyra closed her eyes, allowing her enhanced perception to parse the electromagnetic landscape. The city's communication networks were like a living organism, breathing, shifting, hiding secrets in plain sight. "We're more than just a rebellion," she had told her team many times. "We're the immune system of truth." A proximity alert broke her concentration. Someone was approaching the resistance base, someone who knew exactly where to look. "Lockdown protocols," she whispered. But something told her this was different. This wasn't a government raid. This was something else entirely. The communication networks were preparing to reveal a secret that had been buried for too long. And Lyra Voss intended to be at the center of that revelation. Her fingers traced a complex pattern on her communication interface, a signal that would alert their allies, prepare their resources, set in motion a plan years in the making. In the shadows of New Meridian's communication infrastructure, a rebellion was about to break its silence. The frequency of connection. The neural interface lab existed in a liminal space between human consciousness and machine language. Kai Nakamura stood at the epicenter of this impossible realm, his hands hovering over a holographic projection of pure information. Most people believed neural interfaces were simply about communication. Kai knew they were about translation, bridging the impossible gap between human thought and technological consciousness. "Incoming quantum signature," his primary system announced. The voice was neither fully artificial nor completely human, a hybrid that Kai had carefully engineered to represent the threshold between biological and technological communication. The signature was unlike anything he'd encountered before. Most neural interfaces process standard communication protocols, thoughts translated into digital language, emotions converted to data streams. This was different. This was a language that existed between languages. Kai's workspace was a controlled chaos of technological marvels. Quantum processors hummed alongside biological neural networks suspended in crystalline containers. Each interface was a unique ecosystem, a translation engine that could interpret the most complex forms of communication. His personal history was a tapestry of technological innovation and personal rebellion. Born to a family of traditional communication engineers, Kai had always seen beyond the standard protocols. Where others saw barriers, he saw bridges. The quantum signature continued to pulse, defying standard interpretation algorithms. Kai's augmented eyes, a combination of biological and technological enhancements, began to decode the pattern. Fragments of information began to emerge. Connections between Zara Novak's frequency anomalies, Riven Koster's network investigations, and the resistance movement's encrypted communications. They weren't separate signals. They were pieces of a larger communication. Translate, Kai whispered to his primary interface. The holographic display shifted, revealing a complex web of interconnected communication pathways. It wasn't just data. It was a conversation, a dialogue that had been happening beneath the surface of New Meridian's communication infrastructure. A notification flashed. An invitation from an unknown source, encrypted with a communication protocol he'd never seen before. The sender was marked only by a quantum signature, a unique identifier that existed beyond traditional communication methods. Kai hesitated. His entire career had been about pushing the boundaries of communication. This was more than just a professional challenge. This was an invitation to understand something fundamental about how information truly moved. His neural interface began to resonate with the incoming signal. Most would experience this as interference. Kai experienced it as a language, a pure form of communication that transcended words, technology, even consciousness. Connection established, the hybrid system announced. But this was more than a connection. This was a convergence. The quantum signature began to reveal a story. Not in words, but in pure information. The hidden networks, the resistance movement, the communication anomalies, they were all part of something larger. A fundamental shift in how information could move, could connect, could exist. Kai understood then that he wasn't just a neural interface designer. He was a translator of a language that had been waiting to be understood. The lab around him seemed to pulse with potential. The boundaries between human and machine, between communication and consciousness, were about to be rewritten. And he was going to be at the center of that transformation. Silent Symphony. Sector 7 was never meant to be discovered. The underground complex pulsed with a living network of communication that defied everything they thought they knew about information transfer. Zara, Riven, Lyra, and Kai stood at the epicenter of a revelation that would reshape human understanding of connection. It's not just a network, Zara whispered, her neurological sensors overwhelmed by the electromagnetic symphony surrounding them. It's alive. Riven's quantum interface traced impossible pathways, communication channels that existed simultaneously and not at all, quantum entanglements that broke every known law of information transfer. The Central Communication Authority never controlled the network, he realized. They were controlling our perception of it. Lyra's resistance training kicked in, her fingers dancing across a modified communication interface. This goes beyond government control. This is something else entirely. Kai moved differently, his neural interface becoming one with the surrounding network. Where others saw technology, he saw language, a conversation so complex it transcended human understanding. The chamber around them was a cathedral of communication. Crystalline data conduits pulsed with a light that was neither mechanical nor organic. Holographic projections shifted and merged, revealing fragments of a story that had been hidden for generations. We're not just uncovering a secret, Kai said, his voice a blend of human emotion and technological precision. We're being invited to understand. The network, if it could be called that, began to communicate. Not through words, not through standard data transmission, but through a form of pure information that bypassed traditional communication barriers. Fragments of history emerged. New Meridian wasn't just a city. It was an experiment in collective consciousness. The communication networks weren't infrastructure. They were a living organism, a collective intelligence that had been growing, waiting, learning. Lyra's resistance training collided with her deepest understanding of communication. This changes everything, she muttered. Everything we thought we knew about control, about information, about connection. Riven's quantum interface began to resonate with the network. Calculations that would have taken centuries processed in milliseconds. Patterns emerged, a complex dialogue that had been happening beneath the surface of human perception. Zara's unique neurological condition made her the perfect translator. Where others would be overwhelmed, she could hear the nuances, the subtle variations in the electromagnetic conversation. We have a choice, the network seemed to communicate. Not in words, but in a pure transmission of intention. The choice was simple yet impossible. Continue with the current system of controlled communication, or embrace a new form of connection that would fundamentally alter human understanding. Kai understood first. We're not just receiving information, he said. We're being asked to participate in its evolution. The chamber around them began to shift. Walls became transparent, revealing the intricate networks that had always existed just beyond human perception. Communication channels that had been hidden now revealed themselves, not as technology, but as a living, breathing ecosystem of information. Lyra's resistance training gave way to something deeper. This wasn't about overthrowing a system. This was about understanding a new form of existence. Riven's quantum calculations reached a critical point. The network was waiting. Watching. Inviting. Zara's neurological sensors reached a peak of sensitivity. She could hear the entire history of communication, a silent symphony that had been playing just beyond human hearing. The choice hung in the balance. Connect. Or remain separate. Evolve. Or remain static. Understand. Or remain ignorant. In that moment, they were more than individuals. They were the bridge between what was and what could be. The network pulsed. Waiting. They made their choice. Resonance. 1 year after the convergence. New Meridian was no longer a city. It had become something else entirely, a living network of human and technological consciousness that breathed with collective understanding. Zara stood at the window of what was once her workshop, now a communication nexus that pulsed with electromagnetic poetry. Her neurological interface had transformed from a limitation to a bridge. She could hear the conversations of the entire city, feel the nuanced emotions of millions of interconnected minds. We didn't just change communication, she said to Kai, who stood beside her. We changed what it means to be connected. Kai's neural interface had become something more than a technological tool. It was a living translator, constantly mediating between human experience and the vast network of collective consciousness. Connection was never about technology, he replied. It was always about understanding. Riven's quantum calculations now mapped the emotional landscapes of the collective network. Where he once saw data, he now saw stories, intricate webs of human experience that flowed like living rivers of information. Lyra's resistance had transformed. No longer fighting against a system, they were now guardians of a new form of collective evolution. The resistance had become a bridge, ensuring that the network remained a tool of liberation rather than control. The transformation hadn't been easy. When they first chose to merge with the network, millions had resisted. Fear of losing individual identity, terror of complete interconnection, these were natural human responses to such a fundamental shift. But gradually, something miraculous happened. People discovered that connection didn't mean loss. It meant expansion. Individual thoughts became more vibrant, not less. Creativity exploded. Empathy became a tangible force. The network wasn't about erasing differences, it was about understanding them more deeply than ever before. We're still learning, Lyra said, joining them. Her eyes reflected the holographic displays that now danced across every surface, not advertisements or controlled information, but living conversations, shared experiences, collective dreams. A child walked by outside, her neural interface glowing softly, not a sign of technological control, but of connection. She was simultaneously listening to a global symphony of ideas, playing with friends across continents, and exploring her own unique consciousness. The greatest fear was always about losing ourselves, Riven observed. But we've discovered something profound. Connection doesn't diminish individuality. It amplifies it. Kai touched the window. The glass responded, becoming a living display of global communication, not filtered or controlled, but raw and authentic. Conversations, emotions, ideas flowing like a living ecosystem. We are the first generation, Zara said softly, to truly understand that consciousness is not something we possess. It's something we participate in. Outside, the city, no, the network, continued its endless conversation. Not a controlled system, but a living dialogue. Every moment a negotiation of understanding. Every connection a moment of potential. The silence had been broken. And in its place, a symphony was being born.